Hey, everybody, welcome back to Today in Tech. Still without a proper host. My name is Michael Simon. I am with Macworld, and this is Ken Mingus. He is with Computer World. And we are talking about. What are we talking about? I just totally
The
spaced.
Apple event coming up, whenever it's
Ah,
coming up, it's with a focus on the Apple Watch today.
right. So, yesterday there was a rumor that the first fall event, which isn't actually in fall, it never is, but we call it then anyway because it's close enough, is September 7th, which is unique for a couple different reasons. One, it's a Wednesday. Usually that first event is on a Tuesday. And two, it's early because usually Apple, we have Labor Day and back to school and people getting back into the fall swing of things. And then we have the Apple event in like the teens, 10, 12, 14. So we expected it to be on Tuesday, September 13th.
13th, yeah.
That's not the case.
We
Well,
don't think. We don't
that's
know.
not the case according to Mark Gurman, who generally knows what he's
But we
talking about
will
with
know
these
shortly
things.
because if that's the case, invites will have to go out within the next week or two.
2 weeks. So
Uh,
yeah, if that's the case, we'll get an invite on August 30th.
Okay.
Um, Looks like it's going to be virtual again. Apple's not quite ready to bring everybody back to Apple Park. Maybe next year, maybe WWDC possibly could be, or maybe like that spring event, that March event could be a live one. Personally, I don't really care, and I like it better this way because
I hope they. I actually wish they would just keep doing it virtual. It moves so much faster. You get all the
it does.
information.
And I wonder if Apple, like, how does Apple feel about it? It's not like they're getting any less coverage
They
by
like the
doing it
applause,
virtually.
maybe, but when they have people in the building, but that just slows things down.
Yeah. So there's applause breaks and everything else. So yeah, another virtual one. So it'll be fast moving, about 45 minutes, and it's the iPhone event. But we're not going to talk about the iPhone today. We're going to talk about the Apple Watch because that's the potential to be an even bigger announcement this year. So we
Bigger in terms of something really new.
Yeah, and different, and could really push the category forward. Apple has, let me think here, 2015. Am I right about that? Be 7 years into the Apple Watch. Well, yeah, Series 7. So we're 7 years in to the Apple Watch development. It feels like a lot longer than that, but it's not. It's only 7 years,
I think it's
and
actually 8 years, isn't it? Because wasn't the Apple Watch there was no Series One per se, was it?
it was
Wasn't there something before Series One though? Just
well
Apple.
the original one,
Yeah,
and then one. Well, whatever.
I'm thinking it was a
I,
2014.
I thought it
Anyway,
was 2015 where it came out, but maybe whatever it is, 7 or 8
years.
years.
It's been a lot of
Yeah,
years.
it's been long enough where it's a mature, established
Yeah.
product, but it's still relatively new
Hmm.
compared to the iPhone and certainly compared to the Mac. So it hasn't changed all that much. The screen is bigger. So we started with the 38 millimeter and a 40 millimeter back when it first launched, and that's still available in the Apple Watch Series 3, which is probably going away. Now we have 41 and 45 millimeter sizes. The case is a little bit bigger, slightly thicker, faster, all that stuff that you expect in an evolving product, but it's essentially the same. We have the digital crown, we have a button, we have a screen that you can tap and do things with, and we've gotten always on display and new sensors, things like that. But from year to year, the Apple Watch has been basically the Apple Watch. This year, we're supposed to be getting Apple Watch Series 8, which will be, the same as the 7, 41 and 45 millimeters and some improvements. But with that, Apple Watch Pro is what people are calling it. And what that would be is a larger watch, possibly as large as like 50 or 51 millimeters, which that's the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah.
There's been all sorts of various Apple Watches. Apple Watch Edition is the big one, which is titanium or ceramic and more expensive. Hermes with those ridiculously expensive bands. Nike has one. There was a sport way back when. Like we've seen these things, but they're always kind of variations on the regular watch.
Right.
Like if you spend $399 on the Apple Watch Series 7 or $15.99 on the Hermes one, it's the same thing. You're just getting a better band and, like a different watch face or something. This is the first time where Apple is really going to differentiate the line with like a new higher end product that isn't just like a different material. And I'm curious to see how, like, what it is. Like, is it just bigger, or there's reports that it's going to be a different material, maybe like a rugged
It's supposed
for
to be,
like extreme sports.
yeah, yeah, for like people who do out hiking, rough sports, whatever, and you want something that's a little more durable
Yep.
and solid. This is the first variation of the Apple Watch in at least the last 4 or 5 years that really has caught my eye.
Well, you're a big watch guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess, and I tried the Samsung watch for a couple of years. I really I do like the round form factor.
Mm-hmm.
But then I jumped over to Garmin, which I really like. I've got my Garmin Tactics, which for exercise and anything you do, biking, hiking, gym time, running, whatever, the amount of data that Garmin produces from the device on your wrist is amazing, and I really like that. But I would be really curious about the larger form factor, especially if it's like a 51 millimeter. I mean, that would be a very large screen.
Yeah.
The things I've seen say that the screen on the Pro is only going to be like 7% or maybe 10% larger than the larger watch now.
Well, I mean, if you do the math on that, 45 millimeters, that's about 4.5 millimeters. That's 50.
Yeah, okay.
So it's going to be around there.
Yeah,
that's big. I
and
wouldn't want
more
one.
Expensive too.
And it's going to be probably like edition level pricing, which is like 900.
Oh,
but I personally, that's not for me. Like I think the 45 millimeter is too big. Like I guess I have dainty wrists. I don't know.
I was going to say those things look like postage stamps. What are you talking about?
I've never been a big watch person. I've never been. I like them small. Okay. So I get the 41 millimeter, and that's perfectly fine for me. But there are probably a whole contingent of people out there, particularly who do this type of sport, because Garmin has like a whole niche there.
Yeah.
They're not, I mean, it's a smartwatch, but they're very much geared towards a specific type of athlete, specific type of person. And that's clearly what Apple's going after here.
Yeah, the difference between, like, say, a Garmin and an Apple Watch is that the Garmin is much more a fitness tracker with some smartwatch features,
right,
lightly, sprinkled in the mix, whereas the Apple Watch is full on a smartwatch with a lot and increasing numbers of fitness tracking, apps, software, parameters, whatever. Apple has been building on that because I think they've seen that a lot of people use the Apple Watch specifically for that. I mean, at the gym, the Apple Watch is overwhelmingly the watch of choice of people that, I see using. So I think Apple's moving in the right direction if this all turns out to be true.
Yeah. And also expected to have a new temperature sensor, which would be, so it's not going to be like you can just like tap your wrist and say like, oh, I have a fever, but it would track trends over time. And the reports are that it would be for, maybe saying, okay, listen, your skin temperature has been elevated for a day or two, you might be getting sick, or for female fertility, because that's also temperature based. But I think Apple's going to be very careful with this, much like the blood oxygen thing, to say, hey, this is not something you should rely on. And this is not something that you should just say like, oh, I'm fine, I can go out and I'm not sick because my watch says my body temperature is fine.
Well, it's good for checking the trend, though. I mean,
for sure.
The absolute number, whatever the temperature is or whatever your blood ox is, might not be 100% correct. But if it's always at certain levels and then suddenly goes up goes down in a certain way, it can tell you something may be going on.
Yeah, and obviously you need to go see a doctor or whatever it is then. And we read those reports fairly regularly where people get that Apple Watch notification about the heartbeat irregularity or the blood oxygen thing, and they say like, hey, listen, I went to my doctor and I had this, and I've discovered that I had that. So, it definitely works. That's kind of the thing. So you talked about Garmin and all of the stats and data they provide. I mean, I think Apple is very careful about pushing that information. Like Fitbit does the same thing. They have a ton of data, and I'm not going to say it's wrong, but it's not as accurate as it could be. And I think Apple wants to make sure. That's why they do all these studies. They do a ton of, like, you can opt into heart studies and research studies with when you buy a watch, because that algorithm, they're not going to push it to people unless it's rock solid.
Yeah.
So that's why these features, these metrics kind of arrive in like dribs and drabs, and they're not there. The blood oxygen is a good example. Like when that arrived, they did one thing, and then over time it'll be added to other sensors, other stats, mainly sleep stuff that they doesn't do yet. But Apple's learning and researching and is going to figure that out, and eventually they'll push it when they're certain that it's accurate enough to be useful.
Yeah, I've seen. I was looking up some of the rumors around upcoming Apple Watch this year and maybe the next, and there's things like that. They talk about blood glucose monitoring.
Yeah.
For instance, I saw something saying that Apple may have patented a watch band that tightens up when you're doing exercise, so that you actually get better readings.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues with these devices, regardless of the manufacturer, is it really depends. Some people basically don't wear it right. They wear it too high, they wear it too low. It's not good readings. It's not in contact with the skin. It's too loose. And, you have to sort of account for all that if you're going to start using these as devices that are more than just telling the time, sending messages, and checking, your heart rate once in a while. I mean, if they're going to be really useful for health and fitness, you have to really, eliminate as many of those variables as you can.
Right.
And so I agree with you. That's why Apple does this very cautiously and very slowly.
Yeah, and that's not a unique to Apple thing. Like,
right.
Fitbit, all that, they all tell you how to strap it on, how to wear it. And, some people just don't do it. They wear it upside down. They wear, like some people just don't get it right. And we've seen a lot of patents in that regard.
Yeah.
With things like that the Apple Watch could do going forward. Glucose is one of the ones that we've heard rumors about for, it's got to be years by now, because Tim Cook has said it on earnings calls and in interviews that's one of the things that they want to do, but non-invasive. Like, they don't want you to have to, obviously, prick your finger, but they don't want anything like digging into your skin. So it's not, so they would have to use light and whatever else on your skin to get that reading, and they're just not there yet. But we read about that every year, that's something that they're really pushing and really trying to get to a level where they can mass market it in a watch.
The other feature too, and I don't even know if this is mechanically possible, but the idea of using the watch to monitor blood pressure, I think that would be a real game changer for any device maker if they could get it and it was accurate. But once again, that's one of those things you really have to make sure it's accurate, because if you're telling somebody their blood pressure is too high and it's not, false alarm. If you're telling them the opposite, then you have a problem,
right?
But you wouldn't know it. So it's
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I do know blood pressure is a whole thing. Like they strap the thing to your arm and they squeeze the thing. So I don't know if that's even possible, but I also didn't think blood oxygen readings was possible either. So like the things that they're able to do in these small little spaces now are just staggering. I mean, you can get an EKG on your watch. It's nutty. So I'm sure that's something that they're also looking into as well. I mean, health is like becoming the number one thing that they want. It wasn't really when it first launched. It was a smartwatch and a social thing, and it also does this. Health is rapidly like leapfrogging all those other features as the number one reason why you need or want a new Apple Watch every year.
Yeah. Hey, question, Michael. Do we have any sense? I presume there'll be new watch faces because Apple always rolls out.
WatchOS 9 has a couple already.
Okay.
There may be exclusive ones for the new watches, particularly the large, like the Series 7 got them because of the screen.
Right.
So that 50mm one, that's a lot more room to work with. So yeah, I would think the Apple Watch Pro, which is what they're rumored to call it, will have 2 or 3 exclusive watch faces that really kind of spread things out and, densely pack it with information, because it's so much of a bigger watch.
Is there any chance that Apple will ever open up watch faces to like third-party developers?
I mean, they opened up the lock screen on iOS 16 to third-party developers. That was shocking. So sure, maybe. I mean, they let they let in complications. That's something. You can save watch faces and then like share them with people. So they're kind of right there. If they do, they would have to have real tight control over it, because the last thing you want is to open up your watch gallery and there's like 800, crappy watch faces.
Yeah.
And you download them and they don't work right. Like Fitbit did that.
Yeah.
Does that. And, at the beginning it was just kind of like wide open, and a bunch of them were just terrible. So they've gotten better at kind of weeding out the ones that aren't great. So you have to be careful about that. What I wish they would do is release them more often. Like, I wish they weren't tied to
sort of a rollout over the
Yeah, maybe like have a spring watch face. Like they do that with Pride Month when they come out with the band. They have a new watch face with that. So it's not unprecedented. They can do it. But it would be cool, like maybe a movie tie-in, maybe a Top Gun watch. I don't know. Like something that makes the product you bought, feel fresh every couple of
relevant.
months. Christmas, I don't know, winter, whatever it is. Because they're very well done. Like the watch faces ones that they have, what are there, like 20 of them or so? Like they're fantastic. They're meticulous, and they do a great job with designing them. They're way better than the ones you get on Android. I mean, like not even close.
Yeah.
So I just wish they did it a little bit more often. But I think we'll see a couple. Sure.
Okay. And did I hear you say correctly that there's not a new chip in this particular year's?
Well, that's the question. They say that there will be. Like the rumors say that there will be an S8 chip, but it's probably going to be the S7 chip, which is actually the S6 chip. Like they haven't actually changed it. Yeah.
A non-upgrade. There was really no major change at all.
Right. The Series 7 has what Apple calls an S7 chip, but it's not. Yeah. So it's the same as the S6. I mean, honestly, do we need one? No. It's a watch. Like, I don't think we need that kind of processing power to double or whatever it is, 20%. Like, who needs it?
Well, yeah, I'm not thinking so much about speed and more about the efficiency. And, one of the things that certainly the Garmin people love to talk about is the length of time they can go between charging, days or sometimes weeks, depending on how you do it. And the Apple Watch really does need to be charged up, about once every day and a half?
And so maybe less. Yeah.
So if Apple could come up with an updated processor that allowed for longer periods before you have to charge the watch, I think that would be a very, very big thing.
That Apple Watch Pro it's bigger case, bigger screen, bigger size.
Right?
So that's the speculation, is that one will last 36 hours or something like that. So the Apple Watch has had 18-hour battery life since it arrived, which is fine. But as it grows, and we're talking about sleep tracking and better exercise tracking and all that stuff, all of a sudden you have to charge it at some point during the day if you want to use it all day. And that's not the greatest experience. Like, imagine your iPhone was like that. Like, oh, well, I got to plug it in at 3 o'clock. Like, Apple has gotten the phone to the point where, you basically don't have to worry about battery life.
Right. Correct.
And I think the Apple Watch needs to get there too. We'll see. It's supposed to have a low power mode, which would allow you, like, let's say you're out for a weekend, you don't want to bring your charger, like you can turn off some things and maybe stretch that battery life by an extra 5 or 10 hours, depending on what you want to do. Because right now the low power mode is terrible. It's a power reserve mode. It's literally shuts everything off except for like a little green digital readout at the time. It's awful. Like, it's useless. So if you could
watch it, nothing. I mean, it turns it into just a cheap clock.
Yeah, right.
Or a very expensive clock, I guess I should say. But when you turn off all the features, what's the point?
Right. So if there was a low power mode where you can shut off everything except step tracking or something, or turn off GPS and all the things that are the sensors that are using your battery. So we'll see how they do that. Other watches, Android watches, do that stuff very well, where you can go from 16 or so hours to like 40, depending on what you do, what you turn off. So that's something that I'm looking at. I agree. Battery life is the number one issue with the Apple Watch, and I think that's probably holding it back. Like the number one thing that's holding it back is battery life, because you can't do adequate sleep tracking and exercise tracking and wear it all day without charging it for at least a little while at some point between wake up and sleeping. And that's, Fitbit lasts 5 days. The Samsung watches are, they're not so great, but that's to be expected. And you said the Garmin ones also, like that's their thing. If Apple could figure that out to get, 36 to 48 hours, I think would be good in an Apple Watch, which is, that's 3 times as long. That's significant. I think that's the next thing that they need to tackle.
Yeah, and you make the point, if you're going to be using these things to exercise with, and people really do track their sleep habits, how deep the sleep is, whether there's sleep apnea, breathing, respiration while sleeping, all that stuff. You can't do, well, I'm not going to repeat you got it right. You can't do all that stuff when the Apple Watch needs charging after, 12 to 18 hours.
Yeah, because no one's thinking, like, you don't think about that. And then all of a sudden it's nighttime and you're down to 15% and, like, oh, now I got to charge it. Like, it's just something that shouldn't be a thought. Yeah. Also coming this year is a new Apple Watch SE. So that's Apple's, like...
That's the low-end model, right?
It's not quite the low-end. So there's the $199 Apple Watch Series 3 that has to be going away, right? Like, there's no way it's not. It doesn't support watchOS 9. Apple's been selling it for 4 years. It's the old design, old sensors, old chip, old everything. I think that's gone. Yeah. Now, I don't know if anything replaces it down there. Maybe they start production on like a 4 or a 5. I don't know. We haven't heard anything about that. But Apple Watch SE 2. So the Apple Watch SE came out 2 years ago at $279. It's essentially an Apple Watch Series 5 without an always-on display. Rumor would be that it would be similar, but probably bring the always-on display. Hopefully for a price cut. So if they get rid of that $199, if they get rid of that $199 model, if they get rid of that $199 model, like that SE has to drop, I think, to like $249, maybe something like that. Yeah, that would be helpful. But if not, if it's the same $279 with an always-on display, the same sensors, maybe a newer chip, that's pretty compelling for that price range. $249 would be better. $199 would be amazing. But it's been 2 years. It needs an update, because without the always-on display, for one, that's a big seller. Like, nobody wants to look at their watch and there's nothing there.
Not in this day and age. Well, before we go, any sense about pricing for the regular Apple Watch 8? Do we expect there'll be an increase?
I doubt it. It's been $399 forever. I'm assuming it is going to stay there. I assume the Pro is $899, $799. Like, it's going to be a lot. And the SE $249, $279, probably, around there, because you can't go too high. Like if the SE is $329, that's like, what's the point? Because then you could just go to $399 and get the new one. Right. So it's got to be in the twos. I'd like it to $229 would be awesome, which is like it's often on sale on Amazon for $229. If they were able to bring it in at that price range, they'd sell a ton of them, because then you got a real compelling product.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right, so that's the big changes coming for the Apple Watch. We'll talk about the big event in a couple of weeks before the 7th or whenever it is. By then we'll know whether or not.
Well, the obviously it's the iPhone event. Everyone's gonna want to know what's the iPhone 14. We'll talk about that in 2 weeks, one way or the other. But by then we might have an event. Invitation. We might know for sure that it's going to be on the 7th.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Mike, thanks for that. That was really enlightening. And like I say, I am looking forward to hearing about the Apple Watch Pro, whatever it is. First time I've been interested in the Apple Watch part of these things in a long time.
You've never had an Apple Watch, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I had several early on,
Oh, you
and
did.
then I had like the first three or four of them, and then jumped to try out the Samsung thing in Samsung Galaxy, I think it was, in like
Yeah.
2017 or 2018, and then I've been a Garmin guy since 2020. So I'm ready to come back, Apple. Make me proud. Do something I want.
Well, you're
Maybe
not getting a circle. I can tell you that much.
I know, I know. Well, that's okay. I mean, I like round, but I can adjust if need be. Um, anyway, in the meantime, I guess we should let it go for that for now. On that note, thanks for watching. If you've been watching us on the LinkedIn channel, the LinkedIn page, please jump over to the YouTube channel. You can leave some comments, questions. Let us know what you think about Apple's plans for the Apple Watch as we know them now. Leave questions, comments. Like I said, please, of course, subscribe to the channel if you like what you see.